Hi, Mariam. Welcome to the podcast, Brain in You. Very, very happy to have you here today.
Hi, Vandita. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so before we start, Mariam, why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Yes. My name is Mariam Shapera. So I'll just go back a bit to when I was younger. I basically was born in Baghdad in Iraq, and me and my family we immigrated to the United Kingdom when I was 8. So I grew up there. I went to medical school there, and I basically continued my family immigrated then to California. And so shortly after I graduated medical school, I did some quick training there, and then I did my residency in Michigan. And
Hmm.
so I then became an independent family doctor, finished residency in Michigan, and I also got married there. So my husband was actually also doing residency in that same hospital. And then we had our first child, my daughter, who's now 10 years old there. And then we then moved to San Diego when she was 1. So it was like 8 years ago, something like that. And then I had my 2 other boys shortly after, and I continued working as a part-time family doctor. When my second son, my middle child, was born, Joseph, is short as Joe. Um, so we had my daughter, and then 2 years later we had him. I noticed immediately from the time he was born, he was just overall. I mean, I know that every sibling is different, but he was just so calm. And we coming from medical backgrounds, there was some kind of things we were looking for that we noticed. By the age of 1, he was not. He was saying some words, but he was just so much what we call like quieter than my daughter. He wasn't even crying much. He was also more of what we call like a picky eater.
Hmm.
I would like be praying every time it was time for him to like drink his milk and things like that. Like, oh please, like just let him finish the bottle, things like that. So yeah, by the time he was about 1.5, we noticed he was playing more by himself, not talking as much, preferring singing with so much like intonation, and really picking up songs more than words. Not much eye contact or pointing. And so when he went for his 2-year checkup, we did bring this up with the pediatrician, and she said, "Okay, we're going to do a developmental assessment." And that's when they came to our house and they did that. It wasn't the best experience, I have to say, because we had like 2 strangers come to our house. They stayed for like 2 hours. He wasn't very happy with all the little tests that they had to do. And it was very negative, like deficit based, like he can't do this, 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 nothing about strengths, which we know that he has. And so it's kind of, I think a lot of parents can relate to that, especially when it comes to that. And then we were told that he has high risk of autism. And so then we got the official diagnosis. We actually started speech therapy when he was 2 because we wanted to get in there quickly. And they also recommended ABA. They actually recommended ABA before speech 3 times a week. So we did that, very play based type thing. And then speech, we started through our insurance. And then when he was 3, we got the official diagnosis. So yeah, we've been doing therapy since then. And then I had my youngest child as well. He's 6 years old now. So, and then COVID hit. We stopped the ABA. He had to go through potty training, and that was difficult. I didn't work for a year either, and I tried to help him, and it was very hard. ABA weren't able to help much with Zoom and everything like that during COVID. So that was our main issue at that time. His speech was improving, and we also entertained the idea of using an AAC device. It was provided by his school shortly after. Um, so then the potty training thing, what happened was we ended up out of desperation hiring a private potty consultant. She actually flew from New York and she stayed for 3, 4 days and we potty trained him like it was like intense. And then I kind of continued what she did and we got him potty trained. It was kind of slow process, took over a year, but we got there at the end. So yeah, and then since then we've just been continuing. He's been doing well in school. He has, like I said, he's speaking, minimally speaking. He's a Gestalt language processor. That's just how he learns language. And then he has an AAC device. It's there for
To
him when he needs.
communicate.
Yeah, and then yeah, we're just still doing ABA once a week and speech. Yeah,
Okay. Excellent. Love it. Yeah. This towards the end when you mentioned potty training, that is maybe something I'll come back to you on.
yeah.
Because let me give you some idea of the listeners who will be listening to this today. So Iyurved, this brand of mine, we work in the space of nutrition.
Okay.
and we create nutrition which is consumed by kids, by teenagers, by young adults, also those who are neurodiverse. And these nutrition packs, which are obviously extremely made with all natural food ingredients,
Mm.
um, I think they settle well with picky eaters and sensitivities. And yes, at the same time, has all the ingredients good for the brain development. So in that journey of doing this, we made this community of over 500,000 customers, if I would call them,
Yes.
and almost 1 million parents.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they will be the ones listening to this today. And this whole community mostly has children between the age group of 2 to 10.
Okay.
So when you're giving your suggestions today, you may keep in mind this age group. And the
Okay.
reason I will double tap on potty training is because this is a question that we get to hear from parents a lot. And I think it can be very stressful to any parent. You would know that. You've been through that. That not getting up at the night or just dirtying your clothes or
Exactly.
not knowing, not
Yeah.
having a routine. I know it can be very stressful. So, okay, this is good, Miriam. So let's just start. Maybe my first question is actually around your journey. That was there a moment, Miriam, when you felt completely lost and what got you through that?
I have to go back again to COVID. I think, like most parents, I was so lost. We didn't have ABA. And at that time, I felt like I didn't get any like education, and I just had to do it myself, to be honest. With ABA, it was like, okay, we're starting therapy, and this is the treatment of autism. Like they use those kind of words like treatment. I didn't know at the time. I was like, okay, let's do this. So then when COVID hit and we couldn't do ABA, we had speech. We did have speech, I believe it was like every other week. But I just felt like, you know what, he's home and we're going to just have to work with him as parents. We just played with him. He loved reading, so he actually is hyperlexic, so he learned to read by himself. He had a special interests, playing with his siblings. It was good. He had siblings too, so he wasn't
Oh,
totally alone. And it was that time I think I felt most hopeless. But then that's also kind of, I didn't mention, but I had a fourth baby and was stillborn. In 2020, I delivered him. And I think that, along with Joseph's diagnosis, pushed me to
uh,
publish my first book. And with that, I kind of really got into Joseph and helping him at home. And I set up the Instagram account. And it was through the account that I learned about neurodiversity and Gestalt language processing. And then I listened to more podcasts, books, and I just educated myself. I
wow.
mean,
Mm, mm,
home, and we were privileged. I had time to do that as well. Being home, I could stay home. My husband's a doctor, so he was one of the emergency workers, in the hospital. A lot of stress at that time, but I was with the kids and technically homeschooling, my daughter. So yeah, just that was such a difficult time, and
wow.
that's yeah, right. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And in this journey, Miriam, what was the most shocking myth that you believed in the early days of autism diagnosis?
Um, Actually, there's probably quite a few, to be honest, because coming from a medical background, I remember I mean, it was at that time, and it was in the United Kingdom. I had one lecture on autism, I remember, and it was very like red flags, negative based, very stereotype, like negative stereotypes, like head banging. They don't speaking, and there's no eye contact, like all those kind of things, which not every child, one autistic child, you only know one, right? They're all different. So I wish there were just so many myths like that. Like my child does make eye contact, especially to people he knows well, maybe to strangers less. Um, but there's things like, that he doesn't learn, or that I have learned to presume competence, but it's hard. Sometimes you forget. Like that's such a big thing for me because I'm always doing things for him. And my husband has to remind me, like, let him try, give him a chance to do it. And then I forget, okay, yes, I have to let him try. So the presuming competence is a big one. And also kind of not doing what, like, a lot of the time you see therapists come in, they've got all these toys with them, they've got the whole session planned. But he has something else in his mind, and we can tailor it around that to do the learning around his special interests. And sometimes with ABA, that's a little bit difficult. With the speech therapist is really she's very child-led, affirming. But with the ABA, you kind of have to remind them, like, he doesn't need to look at you. he's still listening. He's showing attention other ways. Um, and also, they don't need to really teach him language because he's a Gestalt language processor. There's a different way we teach him or different way we communicate. Anyway, so I think presuming competence is the biggest one for me because he's
Got
surprised,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So presuming competence, you basically mean let's not assume that they can't do certain things. Yeah, I
Yes,
get that.
they
Yeah, yeah.
can't like learn.
So, yeah. Miriam, I was going through your Instagram profile as well, and you've brought on this topic about storytelling, and you say how much that can empower kids. So, how can storytelling help in behavior management, emotional expression, or even speech?
So regarding emotional, I remember when it was during the COVID time, again, going back there, he used to want to, I don't know, he was being very clingy with his books. And he would always go to his books and want to read over the same story over and over again because he had an emotional attachment. There was a few stories that I was like, oh my goodness, enough. Like he wanted me to read to him like 10 times. And that was just a phase at that time. He doesn't ask me to do this now. But that was kind of like the emotional thing for him. But sometimes when I said no, that's enough, he would really get like emotionally dysregulated, and that used to be tough. Um, with regards to speech, that's another big one because he's a Gestalt language processor. There are some books. So with these kids, they learn in chunks first. They don't learn like one word and then add it on to make a sentence. It's the other way. They learn the whole like phrase, and then they break it down into single words, and then they rejoin those kind of words. So it like takes longer to learn.
Mm,
Um, and there are some books that are really tailored to his type of the way he learns language, like
mhm.
phrases, words that have more expression. He has books that are like Wheels of the Bus or Twinkle Twinkle, like song type words, song type books. Because I communicate sometimes with him by singing to him, because he just picks up more on music and he has perfect pitch.
Yeah,
So
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. You can communicate just by a song or maybe by a rhyme.
it's fun, and you can just
Yeah, yeah,
words look at me and be like more,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And Miriam, this could be an interesting one. So in this journey, when COVID also hit, and you were working with different kind of therapists, and you were yourself figuring out what's that one harmless thing that people used to say to children with autism that actually hurts the most?
You mean harmful? Something harm?
Harmless, something harmless that they don't even know that can hurt somebody that much.
I don't understand. What do you mean? Can you?
So, have you come across questions or statements that people harmlessly say without any intent, but that actually hurts the most?
I
Does that
see.
happen?
I don't know if this is not really a question, but like just talking about them in front of them. Um,
Mm.
that's a big one. And now I'm mindful of that, especially as his comprehension is improving. Like I have the therapist here, like yesterday we had the ABA therapist. It's so hard, but I avoid talking about him in front of him. So I say like I use the pronoun we or Joseph, like I get him involved. He did this yesterday or something like that. But that's one.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know questions. It could be. It's very specific. I think like maybe the therapist may ask, "Oh, is he able to hold this, or is he able to write his name, for example?" And he might be thinking, because I know from books of non-speaking autistic people, they've written like we know how to do this. It's boring for us. He might think, "Of course, I know how to write my name. You get me
Yeah,
to do it every day, So that
yeah,
might be like a personal thing, questioning
yeah,
someone's skills.
yeah,
Uh, that might be harmful
yeah,
for them.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
especially not
Actually,
speaking.
yeah, I love that answer that, talking about them in front of them, especially when you're talking about lack of progress or delays
Yeah.
or doubts. I agree because I've also read books wherein these children have typed and said that, we get it. They are way sharper than you. And I think, they might even have way higher IQ. And
Mm.
whatever you're asking them to do on a daily basis, just because you assume that they're not talking and communicating and telling you, that they don't get it. But they might just find that so dumb as per their age that, give me something more. So I think
Yeah.
I'll take that. And that's very, very, yeah, powerful.
No, unfortunately, even nowadays, ABA is getting better, but there are some areas still where they are getting them to repeat the same thing over and over again. And if you don't provide the child with alternative communication, how are you going to know that? The most important thing is connection. You have to build a connection with the child. So they
Mm-hmm.
are regulated, and then also a communication device or sign language or visuals,
Mm-hmm.
what.
Correct, correct. Yeah. So, Miriam, I'm going back to some emotional or behavioral development. Can you share some three practical practices that parents can do at home to support their neurodivergent child's emotional or behavioral development?
Emotional behavior. Let me think. Something to support emotional. It's kind of a tricky question because with Joe, he doesn't, I have to say, we're lucky he doesn't have that many like meltdowns. And I usually know the reason why. He's like tired or sick or something like that. Um, and when they're like that, they don't communicate as well. So you kind of have to guess what's wrong with them emotionally. But we
Mm.
are working on emotions. That's a very difficult one, by the way. With the emotions, usually it doesn't develop in terms of communication until later. So we're working on things like I'm sad, I'm happy, all those kind of things now, or I like it. It's related to interoception sometimes also because that's delayed. um, so things we do to support, a lot of the time I don't question him. I will, for example, say, I will declare something. Like, for example, instead of saying, are you sad or are you happy? I'll say, oh, I'm sad, I'm excited. And then I'll see that he'll be happy, for example, as a response to that. Like he'll smile. So that's how I know he's okay. But sometimes he's what I call very sensitive. Like a lot of these kids are, we label them as sensitive. I know he's about to, like, I don't know, he remembers something sad. And then he'll start like about to cry and he puts on the most sad face, so then I try to get in there quickly and distract him with something. I don't know, like a
Yeah.
song. Songs usually work very well for him. Um, or his sister, well, his sister is like so amazing with him. She'll come and she'll hug him or distract him with songs or do some gross motor activity with him as well. So yeah, I would say those are the couple of things. But the most important is to make sure you rule out the obvious things like did they sleep good? Had they not make sure they're not hungry, sickness, things like
Got
that.
it. Got it. Got it. I'm actually now moving towards a bit of faith and spirituality. Only if you also believe in it, then my next question would be around that. Should I
Yes.
ask? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, do you believe that faith or spirituality plays a role in how parents manage their neurodiverse journey?
I think so. I was raised as a Christian Catholic, and so was my husband, and we still practice our faith as much as we can. We try to go to church every week when my husband's schedule allows. And we go to like a family room so that Joe can stem and script loudly if he needs to, where the kids are. And he's very used to it. And I think he likes it because of the music and the choir and everything. It's very sensory friendly for him with all the lights and everything. And we've been going there for like, I don't know, 5, 6 years. So he's used to it. But I think it really helps us to keep going. At times, days when you just feel like, oh, enough. And we say a prayer and we try to involve him in prayer. And I think it's important for us to be
Mhm.
stay regulated as parents, and
Mhm.
also to try and initiate like religion and faith in him too. Again, presuming competence. He'll sometimes join us in prayer when we say prayer in the evenings. Sometimes he doesn't, and that's okay. Um, but yeah, I think it's very important. Whatever, if you have prayer, meditation, whatever it is, I think at least for parents, you have to have something to kind of keep you calm and
Yeah.
regulated because it's just very
Yeah. Yeah.
different.
Regulate your own emotion. Very true. I agree with it. I mean, it helps me in my working journey.
Yes,
Yeah, even when you're working or you're running a business, I think, yeah, it helps me a lot.
that's
I'm
good.
I would now want to talk about parents burnout because you've been through that journey. So, and you have mentioned a bit about resilience. So, what practical strategies can help parents avoid burnout while caring for their child with special needs?
You have to have time for yourself. You have to have self-care. Um, at the beginning, I used to think self-care was selfish. Even after I had my daughter, I used to think I'm supposed to be with them all the time, taking care of them. But honestly, you have to have it. And for me, in a sense, I'm lucky because he gets to go to school. I know a lot of parents, they have to homeschool their children. And those are the parents I think that really need to take time out for themselves. And that could be anything. Like for me, I wish it was 1 hour exercising, but it's not. I may just go for a short 10-minute walk, even just in my backyard, and that's okay with me. When they sleep, I have to have some time to myself, reading a book, watching TV, a favorite show, listening to a podcast. It has to be something before I sleep. It's kind of what gets me going through the day, and that's kind of,
Mhm.
and then social life, maybe just even having one or two friends you can share with. They don't have to
Yeah.
be parents of autistic children, just, friends that get it. There are friends that don't get it, and I don't think you should mix with those friends because sometimes that can be toxic. And there are ones that really get it and are curious, and I think that really helps as a parent
Mm.
day by
Mm.
day, each day. Take it as it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I was just thinking while you were talking that when I had my first one, I used to go out with my two girlfriends to the shopping mall just to have coffee. That's it. For half an hour break, but that kept me going. And that is not something I realized then, but I realize it now that why did that journey seem
Mm,
easier? And it's not really about neurodiverse children or neurotypical. As a parent, you need it, I feel.
yes. Any
Yeah,
child. My husband
yeah,
says, it's, oh,
yeah,
he's because of
yeah,
Joseph, because of him. Because I said, I think it's relative, right? I think we would do this anyway, even if we
yeah,
just have two neurotypical kids. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. One last question from my side because you touched on it in the beginning, which is potty training.
Okay.
So, and this is a very, very important question, and I think a very important hack that you might end up sharing. So, what is that one hack to train, or what is that one hack to potty train a special needs child?
Okay. So for us, because we also had that lady come in and help us, what I noticed is you don't think outside the box. So you don't want to just think about traditional potty training methods like the sticker chart or those rewards or even having the iPad. It did not work for us. No, he loves his iPad and he'll have it when he eats because keep him regulated with it and to help with language. But when it came to potty training, it wasn't helping. He's not going to be, when he's eventually potty trained, he's not going to have his iPad all the time with him, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what she came up with was incorporating special interests. So we actually counted with him. The problem with him was he wasn't sitting in the toilet long enough. We had to get him to sit long enough in the toilet to do something, number one, mostly number two. And so we got him to count. We were counting with him up to 100. And that usually worked. And then if we're thinking he still can go, we go back again. And that actually helped. So that was, think about what the special interest of the child is. The reward sticker thing, none of it worked. The other thing also I would say is that don't give up, because even though she left and I was doing the rest of the work, there were times when I thought, regression, it happens. So don't think, oh, that's it, we're done. Go back to diapers. The child will regress, but then they'll come back to it again the following day, the next week. And we've had a lot of regression since then.
Mm,
But overall, he's made so much progress. And so when he was fully potty trained, he still wanted me to go with him to the bathroom and to just stand there. And now the last maybe 6 months, and he's 8 years old, the last 6 months, he would just run off to the bathroom himself.
mm,
And so now it's me running after him. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm worried like he'll have an accident, number two or something. But he's all good. He'll close the door. So he wants privacy. He'll take his pants off. And then I'm like, are you okay? So I'm kind of just checking in there because of the hygiene issue now. But yeah, I think the main thing, incorporate special interests and then don't give up, because regression, unfortunately, is more common in autistic individuals than non-autistic. So just because they regress doesn't mean that's it. Keep going,
yeah,
especially.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious that the specialist who guided you in this journey, how did she come up with this idea of let's count from 1 to 100? And when you say special interest, how can a parent find that special interest that they can do with the child in the washroom?
So she came up because she saw that she basically, I think I remember she asked me, like, she sent me like a questionnaire of things he loves. And I even sent her some videos of how he is before she came out. But I told her what he loves. So he knew all his numbers. He loves his ABCs, numbers,
Got it.
music. And so she was like, okay, let's get him to count, and I think she was very resilient. Like she was really like, sit on the toilet, do it, kind of, she was intense. And we made sure he was well hydrated as well. That's important. And I was just like watching how she did it. But with parents, you really just by observing them, and he was really good at his numbers, letters. He loves all his space books. He usually prefers nonfiction, as a lot of our kids do. He's like all his books that he reads are outer space books, and then music as well. So I guess look at what your child, even playing the music, maybe when they're in the bathroom, playing them a favorite song, something like that. It doesn't have to be the iPad necessarily. It could be just like, from your phone, or like
Yeah.
the Yoto player, which is a music player. So something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just singing the favorite
Singing.
melodies or rhymes with them. Yeah. I get it. Get it. Yeah. I hope the listeners today, if they're facing this and they try it, it helps because this is a question that often comes to us. So, yeah, I think this has been very, very useful for me, Mariam. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for
Yeah.
having me here.
Yeah.